I'll tell you what you yearn for. You yearn to breathe and feel as a tree, but you deny the simplicity of your true nature for the taking. We take many things. We store them in our body, in our mind, in our heart. But this is not a tree. A tree does not take things and store it in its body. The tree is breathing and swaying, receiving the sunlight, receiving nutrition from the soil. This tree does not take to be, to keep itself healthy. It releases all that it doesn't need to receive the spaciousness that is our true innocence. In our taking, we uproot ourselves. We do not know what it feels like to be touching the ground, for our bare feet, for our naked body to be on the ground. We don't know what it's like to be bare minimum. Bare minimum. Or we are a man and woman, nothing else, nothing more. And we think being bare minimum is naive, a child. But in the end, it is the principles of the tree that return to us in death. So we gather, collect, store many things in our taking. But in the beginning, when we are a child, and in the end, when we are death, it is the principles of nature that return to us. These principles aren't a clatter. They aren't a propaganda. They aren't jargon, slogans. They aren't rules, a dictatorship, an authoritative. They are the simplicity of what we forget, but is most authentic. We yearn for this, but we don't know what it is. We don't know the feeling. We don't know how to breathe in such nature. We've gotten so accumulative in our taking and storing that We are just simply a collection of the world. But the world is the world, but our foundation, our roots are beyond. We may live in the world, but our roots, deep in the soil, is something that is untouched, uninflicted by the world in its accumulative collection of things. And when we return to that place, it's like a haven, a sanctuary. And in that sanctuary, we get to experience the ecstasy, the freedom, the joy that is taking everything off of us, everything, and placing our bare feet on the ground and bathing our naked body in the sunlight during the sunrise or sunset. It is swimming through the ocean naked, swimming through the lake nude, dancing around a fire with a drum, with a flute, listening to the cello amongst the swaying trees, hearing the echo of wolves near the mountain, the birds. But we fear such things because we don't know nature. We don't know its rhythm. And what we don't know, we fear. But that is our foundation. The world we live in, it's just a passing through. It's like a phase. Era turns into the next era. Age turns into the next age. Decade turns into the next decade. Generation becomes the next generation. It is only a phase, like the moon phases. But our roots, they are steady against time, like the 12,000-year-old tree that has met so many generations, has witnessed so many passing eras and ages. That steady tree that did not spoil against the phases of the world and its phases of destruction, its phases of creativity. No, because it is not taking of the world, it releases the world. It is not collecting the world and storing it, because it does not need such things. It does not want such things. It gives it back. It gives it to the world. Let the world have it, because it's going to eventually fade out, as all things do. All of the collections we store in our body eventually fade out. But the spaciousness, the cleanliness of our true nature is the vessel, the bowl, the cup that receives the world, sips the world, and releases the world back. For the world to move along. So if we feel entrapped, if we feel caught up, if we feel that rattle, that clatter, like tin cans jingling against tin cans, a lot of times that's us. In our taking of things as we're walking around, it's just tin cans hitting against each other. It's quite a clatter and quite a chatter. But in the returning nude and barefoot to the earth, to the ground, then we can begin to remember what it's like to breathe and feel as a tree, and know that is the beginning of this incarnation and the end. Because it's how we cross through life, how we make amends with life, how we forgive life, how we surrender life. And in those principles of surrender, forgiveness, release, making amends, those principles bring us to this, what we call an ascension, where we rise our bows up to the sunlight like a tree. And we experience a joy that is setting everything free, a compassion we cannot know in the clatter, the chatter, the tin cans jingling against tin cans. But we return to it whenever the world is binding us, locking us down, because we know there we'll find a true voice, a voice not of the world, a voice that is speaking for the trees, for life beyond taking things, a life that is an assignment. And all living things are assigned to lead the earth into its steady victory. So we may ask ourselves the question, how can I help Mother Earth reach her steady victory? How can I help the earth reach her steady victory? And when we ask this question, we are no longer taking and storing and taking and storing and the clatter, tin cans, clashing tin cans. We can't become a listener of the earth. We want to learn the earth. We want to study it. We want to remember our rhythm with the earth, our radiance. And in finding our radiance that's untouched by the world and its taking and storing, then we begin to move across this world with a sense of home. Because we know the world is a phase. We're not bound to the world. We're not interlocked. We're not entrapped. Our home is in the breath and the feeling that is beyond the world. It is deeper than what we call this culture and its many facets. It's the roots. Deep, deep, deep. The deeper we go, the more we feel at home in our body, in our mind, in our heart. The more we surrender, the more we trust, the more we forgive ourselves and grow. Not in a halt, a hesitation, a procrastination, not in a weight that weighs us down, but growth that is allowing the sunlight, allowing the soil to nourish us, and allowing the soul to direct us, and the radiance to place things into our life that bring us joy. It's like the radiance of the flower attracts the bee. The more radiant our flower is, the more beautiful, joyful creatures we attract. A bee, a bird, a butterfly. But if our flower is lacking radiance, well, it's hard for us to gather the joyful and beautiful things into our life, because beauty is drawn to radiance. Joy is drawn to radiance. Opportunities to further bloom and to grow is drawn to radiance. We need the bee. We need the bird, the hummingbird. We need the butterfly because they give to us an opportunity to further extend our beauty across the land, extend our radiance across the land, and that's all that we want. To see our rose become many roses. To see our garden become a prolific garden. To see ourselves taken care of in a natural way, in a way that is like the flowers. It's not a force. It's not a taking. It's not a entitlement, a greed, accumulation. It's not a game of facade, faking, pretending, manipulation. It's not that at all. But we are human. And we do not know nature. And that is why we don't know how to attract the joy and beauty we need to expand our beauty across the land. And when we get out of touch with our radiance, well, then we become the flower, the dull flower that takes the energy from the neighboring flowers to give itself a fake sense of radiance, but no bird, bee, or butterfly is drawn to the flower that uses the neighboring flowers to gain energy, gain beauty. So the flower has to manipulate and pretend to be a natural, radiant flower to attract the bird, the bee, the butterfly. But eventually the bird, the bee, the butterfly will know the flower is not honest beauty and will turn away eventually. And that's our game. In faking our beauty, eventually the bird, the bee, the butterfly will turn away. Eventually our joy, eventually it will turn away if it's not true. So this is why we yearn, because we've been given a flower that does not know how to radiate. This is why we yearn for the bird, the bee, the butterfly, to give us joy, to extend our beauty across the land so that we may know abundance. We may know many creatures. We may receive many knowledge, much knowledge. But in the return to the steady tree, we can find what is uniquely true for us and what is not, and begin to shovel out the junk, clean the junk, like the man who organized a massive beach clean, and a beach that seemed so trashy it seemed almost impossible to clear out all of the piles of trash along the beach for miles. Trash, 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 trash. It seemed impossible. Why try? It's just too much. But he did it. A single person with the resources to gather people together did it. Because the shoveling out is one of the most important steps towards returning to the beauty that is true nature. If we're not willing to shovel out the trash, the piles and piles and piles of all the things we've taken and stored, all of the things of the world, newspaper, the thing we ate, the story we read, all of it. If we're not willing to shovel it out, we're never going to walk that beach. We're never going to walk it. And to look out and feel the spaciousness of what is steady against time, not a dump yard of time and all its miscellaneous, disorganized things. What is steady against time is not interlocked, wrapped up, and tangled in time. It is before and after time. It is the innocence of time. It is untouched by the years and ages, the newspaper, the journal, that book, that story, that narrative, that drama, that commotion, that tin can, that jar, that Cheeto bag, that hair clip, that hair weave. It is not that. The innocence when we are a child and we know no thing. We know no such things. We don't know the hair clip, the Cheeto bag, the tin can, the newspaper, the journal, the story, the narrative, the drama, the commotion. As a kid, we don't know the trash yards of all of the things we collect in our mind and heart. The hurt, the revenge, the unforgiveness, the suffering. As a child, we are just radiant flower receiving the bird, the bee, and the butterfly. Until the trash yards build up around our flower, our roots wilt against the trash that is preventing nutrition from soaking up in our roots. And that's when we begin to yearn. Not for more trash, but for the shoveling up. But we can't ask somebody to do it for us. We have to do it ourselves, because only we know what we need to shovel up. Only we know how to return that smile, that childlike smile to us. It doesn't make us weak or naive against the weird manipulation of time. It makes us able to almost transcend time, where the time, this time era has its game, its matrix on how to manipulate, and temptation and persuasion, propaganda. But a radiance is able to give us the knowledge we need. From the bird, the bee that knew the bear, that knew the fox that knew the squirrel that knew the rabbit that knew the turtle that knew the fish. We have knowledge. When we have knowledge, we don't need to fear the time, the era, the age, the manipulation. We don't need to fear because we know. We know. Our radiance, its target, and its protectors, like the wolf, the tiger, the lion. These protectors are our protectors because they protect the earth, not the world and its cultural diversity. It protects the earth and its steady tree, because the steady tree is the timelessness, the deathlessness that births and that destroys everything. It is the mother, the father, it is the true shaman that guides